Thank you for coming tonight for our first of a three-part series around school safety. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of our safety systems, and we have some of our partners with us. And our goal for tonight is for you to learn about how do we respond to school safety issues. So that's the type of information you're going to get, and then we'll open up to some panel discussion and question and answer session. Our next session that will come up after this one is going to be around social media. As you all know, social media has lots of positive and negative impacts on our use. So we're going to try to have a very dedicated session in our next safety series around social media. So thank you for being with us here tonight. We appreciate that you're here. We have a good number of people on the line, and I think you'll be pleased with the panelists tonight who can help field some of our questions for us. So thank you very much. With that, I'm going to hand it off to our moderator for the evening. Chris Moore is our moderator. He is a coordinator in Salem-Keizer Public Schools. He's our social emotional learning coordinator. He supervises counselors, helps us monitor our social emotional learning data, supervises social workers, and he's agreed to be our moderator for this evening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris Moore.
Great. Thank you so much, Superintendent Perry, and welcome to everyone. We're so grateful for this opportunity to have a conversation. There are lots of burning questions that are top of mind right now, and we want to give everyone a chance to share their thoughts and ask questions so that you can understand what we're working on our end to keep your kids safe, to keep staff safe, and to keep our community safe. You know, one of the things that's important to do is kind of unpack what we're talking about when we think about safety. Traditionally, we think about physical safety as being free from assault or from violence or from the place where you live being intruded upon. But one of the things that we see also that's critical to a sense of safety is psychological safety. Free from being humiliated or called out or called names, or sometimes even being invisible. So rather than get into the complexities of all of the different levels of psychological safety, I want to just share with you what a student shared with me. Because when we think about centering our work towards equitable student outcomes, student voice is a critical piece. So I talked with a student a few weeks ago, and I asked the question, how much do you feel like you belong at your school? And they kind of looked at me like no one had ever asked them that question. They said, well, I don't know. And I asked, how safe do you feel at school? And he said, well, I mean, I get bumped in the hall a lot. I get pushed around from time to time. But I don't know, I guess I feel pretty safe. I said, what about psychological safety? Has anyone ever shared with you what psychological safety is or what you think that is? And he like looked at me again, kind of sideways. And he says, I don't know, psychological safety. But so no one can break into my mind. And I laughed and we chuckled, and I thought, oh gosh, that makes a lot of sense, that psychological safety isn't something we really talk about. And I said to him, what if someone told you and you always felt seen, heard, and valued when you showed up at school or when you walked out into the community? What might that feel like? And he said, pretty good. And that gives us a starting point to think about what we want for every student, what we want for all staff, and what we want for our community. Tonight's conversation is about talking about ways we can do that work together and how we need all of us in that work of truly seeing people as people and building our community in ways that our kids deserve. Some of the central pieces of guiding principles for our work here, we think about well-being, is safe and welcoming schools. We want all of our students and all of our staff and all of our families and our community to feel calm, cool, collected, and connected. And those pieces of well-being are complex, but when we work together on those, we have an opportunity to make a difference. The other critical piece here, as we think about the levels of stress and overwhelm in our community as we still continue to struggle through the pandemic and the impacts, is to know that mental health is health. Removing that stigma is critical. So we thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. We thank you for the opportunity to take some risks in thinking a little bit more about these critical issues. So as I mentioned, I asked a student about this and what they thought. Well, we also asked thousands of students in Salem-Keizer what they thought about their physical safety and psychological safety at school. And what we found is it has changed over time. When we look back to 2018, 2019 on our slide with statistics, we see that 59% of our students felt a favorable sense of safety at school. We saw that drop a few points back in fall of 2019. And when we recently asked our students in late October and November, that number crept up to 65%. Favorable responses of feeling psychologically and physically safe in school. Now, there are some encouraging news there is that the number of students who didn't have a high level of concern or fear about violence in school, we had some improvements there. We had some improvements in students not feeling as susceptible or vulnerable to bullying online. What we also see when we compare some of this data to national data sets across the country is that our elementary schools are at the 80th percentile. What that means is out of 100 schools, there are only 20 more that have higher levels of physical and psychological safety reported by their students. Now, if we look at high school and secondary, what we see is a similar trend, a little bit higher in 2018, 2019, a drop in fall of 2019, and an improvement, pretty significant this year. Now, again, this is a complex issue, and we need to make sure that we're asking students, families, and staff these questions. And there is no doubt we have a lot of work to do. One of those areas we have a lot of work to do is what students say about the level of disrespect they experience among their peers. So our conversation moving forward doesn't end tonight. It gives us an opportunity to start talking about what we are doing, because we don't ever want to let what we can't do prevent us from doing what we can. And what we can continue to do is develop relationships with each other and in our community. And we're so thankful to have our community partners here this evening. So we had Superintendent Perry, of course, and Chris Baldridge. Would you like to come on and introduce yourself as we transition into the next part of our conversation?
Thank you, Chris. My name is Chris Baldridge. I'm the Director of Safety and Risk Management Services for the district. I wanted to take the time to, since we're going to talk about physical security, that's a very large portion of what I do for the district. So I wanted to take just a moment to introduce myself and how I arrived at this job so that you can understand the perspective that I'm coming from. I've spent almost the last 20 years in service to this community. Specifically, I spent the last 18 and a half years in law enforcement, and lastly in Marion County Sheriff's Office as a lieutenant. And all of those experiences have given me a great opportunity to arrive here at the district and be a part of maintaining our physical safety and security within inside of our buildings. So that's the lens that I speak to here from tonight. We're going to introduce our panelists as well that are here to help us go through a series of slides that I hope to get through rather quickly, because I want to take time, spend the most time with you as the participants who gave up their evening to answer your questions here.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Real quickly, we'll go and introduce our panelist, Sylvia McDaniel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sylvia McDaniel, Director of Communications and Community Relations for Salem-Keizer Public Schools.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. Would also like to call out that several additional leadership members of cabinet throughout the district are also on the call tonight, are answering questions behind the scenes and supporting this work together as a team. Next, I'd like to transition to our agency partners. Deputy Chief George Burke.
Good evening. Thanks for the invite. And just for those who don't know me, I'm Deputy Chief George Burke, and I'm with the Salem Police Department.
Thank you, Deputy Burke. Coral Smith.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Coral Smith. I am the Central Records Director for Oregon State Police and Program Manager for Safe Oregon.
Thank you, Coral. Commander Jeff Stutrud.
Good evening, everybody. As Chris just said, I'm Jeff Stutrud. I'm the patrol commander for the Marion County Sheriff's Office. And I just want to thank everybody for being here and thank the Salem-Keizer School District for involving law enforcement partners in this.
Thank you, Commander Stutrud. Sergeant Arson of Edison.
Hello, my name is Arson of Edison. I'm a detective sergeant with the Keizer Police Department.
Great. Thank you, Sergeant. Detective Carrie Anderson.
Hi, good evening. Again, it's Carrie Anderson, and I'm a detective with Keizer Police.
Thank you, Detective Anderson. And finally, Detective Jay Prawl.
Good evening. I'm Detective Jay Prawl with the Keizer Police Department.
Again, thank you all so much for being here as our community partners in this work together. We greatly appreciate your service and look forward to hearing more about our systems and how they work together. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more about those safety and emergency systems. Chris?
And Chris, as you're getting started, I'm going to just remind you to be sure to be slow enough for our interpreters.
I will do my best. I keep reminding myself to talk slowly. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for those introductions, and thank you to all of our families and our parents who are here, and as well as our community partners. We do want to walk through a few slides so that we can hopefully answer some very basic questions about systems. The one thing I'll tell you about me is if you're a parent and you have a question out there, my email is always available. You can find me at the Safety and Risk Management Services Department at the district, and my contact information is there. You can kick me an email at any point in time, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. I try to respond to most emails within a day. So as we look at safety and emergency systems, and I really want to talk because there's a lot that goes into that. We're going to stay focused largely on physical safety. We come at it from a holistic approach through emergency management, and we're going to talk about that system a little bit more in depth. I'm going to let you know who all is involved in those systems, each of those systems' roles and responsibilities. And about our partnership with our local law enforcement. I'm being reminded that the Q&A portion, it's already open. So if you're having questions or have questions that you're going to want to ask and have answered later, please feel free to type those in there now in the Q&A section. That should be at the bottom of your screen. If we could go to the next slide, please. So, wow, we've really learned it this year. We do see a number of varying situations that cause us to change our security posture within our schools on a pretty consistent basis. That could be anything from police activity in the area, anything, some type of stranger or someone that's unrecognized coming onto campus. It could be something that's occurring inside the school, like a fight or a weapons issue. We have a system in place that we can quickly respond to those once we're alerted to it, and then start bringing resolution to those situations. In all of these systems, as we move through them with you, you have to know that it's a very large collaboration. It's not only is it safety professionals like law enforcement or firefighters, but all the way down to our bus drivers, our food service. We have a full service department that makes sure that your child, when they're inside of our schools, if we're in anything like a lockdown or something like that, they're being fully taken care of, so that we're making sure that they're fed, depending on what level of lockdown, being able to utilize the restrooms, making sure that kids are taken care of and our staff is taken care of. We have the ability to, one of those things that brings that to us is the timely or consistent reporting into our into our response systems. And you see one of our big partners up there in Safe Oregon. That's been a great resource for us, especially when it comes to school threats or things of concern. Those actually come into my department in multiple locations within the district, so multiple eyes are seeing these types of reports. And what I can tell you about Salem-Keizer Public School District is, no matter what the threat is, no matter whether it's easily dismissed, we make sure that we treat them all the same. We investigate them thoroughly. We report them to our law enforcement partners, and we really dive in on those. Safe Oregon, you can see their information. I would ask our families to have this available to you. You can email, call, text. You can do a lot of different things to report them. You can be anonymous. It is helpful if you're not anonymous on the system, so that we can actually reach out to you and get some more information from you regarding your tip. Additionally, not only reporting to Safe Oregon, but you can always contact your local law enforcement. You can contact the school directly. And of course, if the threat is imminent, please dial 911. There's some numbers for you. I'll kind of leave that up there. Those are the non-emergency numbers. Again, for things like threats or impending violence or anything like that, that's directed towards the school or the district. If it's happening right now, a 911 call is relevant. If it's information that you're receiving or seeing on social media, which we often encounter, the non-emergency numbers to those, and as well as Safe Oregon is there on your screen. So one of the systems that I'm very proud of and I'm proud to be a part of and lead is our district's Emergency Operations Center. It is a school-based team, as well as multiple agencies collaborating inside of this. So if the Emergency Operations Center is activated, and I can give you for instance, a school is placed into lockdown because there's police activity in the area, like a canine search or something like that. So we as a district, in collaboration with law enforcement, make the determination of what level of lockdown that we are going to be dealing with. And those are rehearsed with your students regularly. A level 1 being the most lowest of levels, a level 2 being kind of an intermediate level, and level 3 being there's an active intruder inside the building and we're sheltering. So with those, we make that decision, and then that school-based team, that Emergency Operations Center, is activated, and that's when we begin supporting the school from a district level. If we can go on to the next, please. This really busy graphic, which my emergency manager created for me, I'm so thankful for, shows what it's showing you is that we follow the National Incident Management System for managing emergencies. Not only do we do this during threats, but we've had the unique opportunity to utilize this in every situation, from fires to ice storms, to all of the things that we've faced as a community. This center has been stood up in multiple different variations. It's an effective way to manage the district, and what it does is it brings a bunch of collaborative minds together that are all working with a safety-oriented goal to ensure that our students have everything that they need and our buildings are remaining safe, as well as our staff. So if you look at any of that structure, if you see the incident commander, that's what I do. We have several partners that sit in on that, and we can call others into it as well. So if a larger EOC was stood up, you would have partners in there from our law enforcement partners would be there, as well as our transportation, finance, communications, risk management. It's a full table when we all get around and everybody starts taking action and moving towards it to make sure that we're still functioning the best that we can as a school while we're dealing with the emergency. So as you can see, and we say this a lot and we mean it, our first priority is to keep students and staff safe. That's what we're here to do. And we have a lot of people working towards that. And I kind of skipped over this, and I shouldn't have before I get into the communication slide. There are some specific security systems that the district has that we utilize to aid in our daily function. And one of those is a safety and support response systems. This is a team of highly skilled psychologists and a school social worker who help us with everything from addressing student behavior as it comes to like violence or threats, to overly sexualized behavior from students, as well as suicide risk assessment and ensuring that kids who are experiencing suicidality are wrapped in services as a prevention mindset. This team is really a prevention team. They're designed to, once they are alerted to something, to react quickly through a multidisciplinary process of community partners to help keep kids safe and ensure that they have a successful academic career. We have 43 security specialists, and I want to take this time to thank them. They are an amazing team, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of their team. This is a group of men and women who come into our buildings every day, and their job is to build relationships with kids, to have conversations with kids, to be preventative, and help kids get to their classes, and in those occasions when needed, break up physical altercations and ensure safety of our buildings. Very brave individuals as they are watching over your kids every single day. Sorry about that. The other thing is that we had already implemented, prior to me even coming to the district has been committed to utilizing technology to secure our schools. And through our bond project, we're very thankful we've started to upgrade some of those systems. I'm sure everybody would love for me to talk about them, but some of those systems I'm not going to talk about. And only because I want to keep them confidential so we can keep kids safe and keep staff safe. Communication during an incident is always an interesting thing to navigate. So our goal is always to be honest and transparent as we move through the incident. However, we know, and we hear it from you, from our parents, that it wasn't fast enough. It didn't come with enough information. We communicate the most that we can based on where we're at in the emergency. What we have committed to as a communications team is to give as much detail as we possibly can without impeding any further investigation. And I hope that you've seen that change over the last month or so as we've made those changes in being a bit more forthcoming with information and not holding so much information back. However, it's not a perfect process, and it never will be. And that's because each event is unique. And how we communicate is really about what's happening on the ground as the event is unfolding. So my commitment to you as our community is that we are going to do the best possible job that we can around communication, around communicating emergencies, and then always providing you with closure at the end of the emergency. So that hopefully you feel like we communicate in the most effective way. There are some things that limit us in our communication, like confidentiality of student records and names and things like that. So we have to be careful with what we share. But again, we will be as transparent as we can with the incident without impeding the investigation.